Hello, this is Warlord. We're going to take a look at 3 items that I get asked about quite a bit. We're going to go in and take a look at the camera switch. We're going to set up a few shots, show you how to use it on the timeline. We're also going to get into two-handed weapons, the reach effectors, how to use them, because a little bit has changed. Some things we had to do manually, now it's done for you. And we'll get into just a little bit of how to animate with a two-handed weapon. But before all that, we're going to get into adding frames for emitters. That's when you add an emitter and you find out it won't spin up in time for it to look good. What you do when you go in and you add frames and you set it to emit properly. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the response of the first 2 episodes. Thanks for the email, the contacts, the private messages. I appreciate them all. I haven't quite got around to answering all of them, but I've got almost all of you answered. I do answer all my email. It just depends on how fast I can get to it. And I apologize that I haven't got to all of it yet. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So you've set up a simple scene, you've spent some time, and you've animated a simple scene, and now you decided you want to go back and add some particles, something like fog or something like that. So you go back and you add your fog, and the first thing you notice is it needs time to run up, because you'll notice now the fog's pretty thick. But when we first start off, like all particles, it needs to run up. So what we do to solve this problem is add frames. It's not that difficult. You open up your timeline and you go in to add frames and you insert the number of frames you want to add. I'm adding this to the very beginning because that's where my timeline is set. Now, normally I'm going to add 400 frames if there's a lot of effects, but this fog is spinning up rather quickly, so I'm just going to add 200 frames. Now, we'll add 200 frames. You notice nothing happened except that our light disappeared here, or well, our shadow disappeared here. And that's because I had added a light earlier to the scene, and it's not there now. It's not positioned in that location since I added the 200 frames. But we don't have to worry about that because we're only going to keep the part where it spun up and where it starts. So that'll also tell you where you can go in your editor and make your cut when this shadow right here appears. But anyway, we've got this going, and what we need to do now is change our emitter, because as you'll see, it's not changing anything just by adding the frame. So we come in here with the emit, and what we have to do is move our emitter all the way over to the beginning or wherever you added the frames to. And now it'll start spinning up from the beginning. Now you'll render all of this. If you've not done this before, now you don't have to render the entire scene. If it stops, if it stops somewhere right in here, that's where you can stop the rendering. But you will render the run up, the spin up, everything, because you need from here forward. So what you do is you go ahead and you render this out, you put it in your editor, and then you come back and you make your cut or your start of your clip right here, or better yet right here, anywhere where there's already fog. Now actually we probably should have added a few more frames. You notice there's not a whole lot of fog going right there. So we can come back in here again. Remember I told you 400 frames? Well, let's add another 200, but remember, we have to move our emitter again. We want to render this whole thing again, and now you'll notice the fog spun up completely pretty much. There's your light back. And now you've added particles to your scene. If you have rain, dust, and other things in here, then you have to come down to each one, drill down to them in the timeline, and just move your emitter over. I hope this helped. Okay, let's take a look at the camera switch. What we're going to do is create a few camera shots, and then we're going to use the switch to go between them. And the switch just provides an immediate cut between cameras. What I have loaded is the combat stage from terrains and the cloudy skies. And also what we need to do so we can see what we're doing. We don't have any lighting in here to speak of yet. Just come over here to your ambient lighting and just make it white so we can see what we're doing. Now, let's say we want this car wreck to be one of the camera shots. Now we can go ahead and we can move around, but as we move in, it gets harder and harder to focus just on that object. So the easiest thing to do when you're working with one big prop like this is to drag you in a dummy, and this is just a box. And what we're going to do, we're going to set it as dummy. I'm going to Control D to turn it on. Now what you're seeing there is the shadow catcher that comes in the default. Just go ahead and take it out because we've already got something that'll catch our shadows. That's the scene itself. Now I'm just going to move this somewhere around the car. And the only reason I'm doing that is so I can swivel around that car easily. Now another shot I want to make is of this kiosk or whatever you call it over here. I'm not sure what it is. So I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to duplicate and move my dummy over there also, just somewhere close. Now we're using the preview camera, so we come over here and we create camera. We select our box and then we set up our shot as to wherever we want it. Now we can Control D to toggle the visibility and just move it around until you see something that might be interesting. Now in this case, since I'm going to follow up with a shot across the street, I'm just going to point it that direction. Now you're going to have different things you're going to want to do. Now we've got our camera set up. Control D to toggle back on. And I'm going to move over, the wrong one, move over to the preview camera. And then I'm just going to hit my home button. And then from here, I am going to create another camera. Now we've already got two cameras, and that can start to get confusing. So if you want to, you can come over here and label them. That's just personal preference. Now we've got our kiosk. And we set our shot on it. And now we've got two shots. Go ahead and go back to our preview camera. Now let's go ahead and establish another shot. And in this case, we might want to establish an overhead shot or something like an establishing shot. I think I'll use this tower right here. Of course, you can use whatever you want. I'm going to drag in another box, set it as a dummy. Now you can position this box wherever you want it. You don't have to use objects, putting them near objects like I am. I'm just doing that because that's my preference. Now let's go ahead and create our camera. And let's create a moving shot for this one. Now let's go all the way over. And let's see how that works. It's a little slow, but it'll add some movement. Anyway, we now have three cameras. Go ahead and call this one tower. We'll go back to our preview camera, and then we'll bring up our timeline. We don't need project. All we need is the switcher. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come anywhere here in the beginning, camera list, and I'm going to choose my very first camera, which I want it to be tower. Now don't freak out if anything happens till you select your second camera. And for my second camera, I'm going to make that car. Now you can come back and grab your first camera and pull it all the way back to the beginning. I just didn't start at the beginning because it's easier to pull it back for me. So there's our very first one. And I'm just going to randomly stop these places. You right click, go to kiosk, right click, and back to the tower. Now to see that, we have to come up here and go to the switch. And then you'll see it will abruptly change to the next camera. And of course we can do that again with the dummies off. You can have, I guess, as many of these as you want. Don't think I've ever had more than probably half a dozen. Again, that's just personal preference. But that's how you use the camera switch. Let's take a look at how reach effectors work on two-handed weapons. Used to, we had to build dummies to do this and attach them. Now basically those dummies are built in. So, with our character attached, what we want to do is come over and go to the Edit Reach Target, and then hold down Control, select both of them, and turn on Reach Effector. Then for right now, we're through with that. What we're going to do now is let iClone do the work instead of positioning it manually. And then we'll just go in and adjust it. I'm going to attach it to the spear. And now where this attaches at depends on the pivot point. This pivot point's in the center. I'm going to go to Position. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Attach it. Go to Position. Now, I'm going to move this one up a bit. We'll zoom in where we can see. I'm not going to place these hands just perfectly because of the time it would take, but we'll place them somewhat. And I'm just using the keyboard shortcuts to roll back and forth, W and E. And you get the picture there. Now, just going to move these over. And of course, you may position yours differently. Like everything else, there's a lot of choices. I think I'll come out a little more. Something kind of like that. It's a bit crude, but you get the idea. Of course, you'd want to go in and move the hand back a little more, put that thumb behind it, but we're not going to worry about it being perfect. So now we've got him attached, and what we need to do is select him, go back into our reach target, and we want to lock it, or excuse me, we want to reach object with both of them. And that may shift him back and forth a little. And now we can hit in to open this up, and we can adjust about the only thing that's not locked down, our elbows, to give it a little more natural pose. And now what you want to do is check to see if he's truly glued to the thing, which he is. So as far as attachment goes, that's how you do that. Now you can do your fighting by just adjusting the staff. Now we're not going to get into this in depth, this being a beginner's tutorial. But what you would want to do if you've never done anything like this before, go down like 45 frames, make a move, like maybe rolling it over, and then I think I'm going to move him down like that to spread the grip. And now you'll already notice he's going down into the floor. Just because of that. Well, we could whip out the curve editor and do all kinds of things, but in something this simple, iClone's got you taken care of. You just come in here, put on foot contact, and it will stop at the floor. So that's what we had at 45. And always turn to use angles that you can work with. And then you can start here, or you could go to 90 and do it, either way. Actually, I think I probably will leave it here and do it. Let's grab the foot, unlock it, slide it forward a little, lock it back. Now we'll go to 90. Bring it down, over, something like that. Now that's what we've got up to 90. Let's see, from 90, yeah, I'd go to about 130. Grab the spear. And just do a little thrust. Now that first one's a little slow. I think we probably need to speed it up a bit. Now the curve is made for solving all these problems, but the curve editor is also just a little bit advanced for beginners. So what you can do is come into each one of these and use the presets on it. It's not going to make it perfect, but it can improve it. What we could do to speed up moving of the foot would be to come in, select him, and actually go in and change his keyframe on his foot. But I think what I will do in this case is let's just take a look and see where we're at here. This is where he basically stops to start his thrust. I'm going to right click, transition. Now you can look at these while they're, you can preview it while it's working, but I'm going to go ahead and put gain momentum and stop. Just like that. Gain momentum and stop. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let's come to this one. Guess I should have left my presets open. And let's just accelerate. Then let's come back here to this one and let's just put a smooth on it. Now let's see what we've got. Now that may not be your exact choices, and I'm not sure that smooth helped a whole lot. You might just want to go back and put a linear on that. But in just that little bit, you see how easy it is to animate something like that. Well, it looks like that brings us to the end of another episode. Now, this is a demonstration of one of my newest characters, the Atlantis Guard. It's available now in the Reallusion Marketplace. As always, your support is appreciated. Please stop by and see me on the next episode, and I hope this helps.